So are you able to see my screen? Okay. So the one thing is very clear. If you want to execute a class, it must have a main method. Okay.
Yep.
Got it?
Yep, got it.
And if you have main method, then only this class consider as an executable.
So executable class, yeah.
Okay. So then we may modify back to main. Okay. So, and there is a reason behind it. Why we have public static void main? The reason why we have static, because the class, as I mentioned, class can access static methods and members without an object. Since it is a static method, my hello world method, my hello world class can actually access the main method without any object. Okay. So hello world dot main. And the reason why it is a void method. What is void? That is return type, right?
Yeah.
So normally the default method, it's a void method. It's just an entry point, because when you execute this hello world program, it will execute the main method, but you don't need to send anything back to the terminal or the JVM, because it's an entry point. Okay. So by default, it's a void method. And then the name of the method is going to be the main method. You cannot change the main method, the name of the method. And the reason, if you change the main method, it will not be a executable class. Because when you're executing a class, it will look for this syntax in the Java file, public static void main and string. Okay, then the next question is, why we have string as a string of the square brackets, it's considered as an array, okay? And why we have a string of arrays? This is an argument. This is the input for the main method.
Okay.
Okay. So why we are having the string method here? We'll talk about that. So first, let me open the PDF here. So the public keyword, access outside of the class. Okay, which means public access. And the static, they can run itself without an object with the help of class name. And void doesn't return anything. And main method name is an entry point for the executable class. Okay. And a string of argument. So this is a question here. Why do I need to use a string data type as a arguments here? Because when you call a main method, you can pass some inputs also. Okay, so it can be integer, it can be a float, or it can be Boolean value, or it can be character, right? The only reason we are using a string here, if you pass any type of data, they can convert it into a string. Okay, do you think, can you convert, for example, can you convert hello as a number? Is it possible?
No.
Not possible. Or can you convert the Boolean flag? True. Can you pass it as, can you convert that as one integer or a string?
Yes.
It can be converted into a string. Can you convert this into a double?
What's a double?
I have a Boolean value here. Can the Boolean value converted into a integer or float or anything else?
I don't know.
No, it can. Okay. So in Java, all the data type can be converted into a string. Okay. String can adapt all kind of data type. String can adapt integer. String can adapt floating value. String can adapt decimal values. String can adapt long. It can accept Boolean value also. Okay. That is the reason we are using string here, because the user, they may provide input as an integer. They might provide input as the arrays also. They might be passed inputs as string, numbers. Anything is possible. But think about this scenario. If it is an int here, is it possible for the user can pass some string inputs for the method?
No.
Because it's expecting only the integer.
The number.
Yes. If you use long, this method will only accept long variables. Okay, so we cannot put a restriction to the user. You can only pass this particular data type. Okay, that is the reason we have this string here, because string can accept all kind of data type. Okay, basically any type can be converted into a string. That's the whole point of it. That's the reason we have string. I'll give you another example tomorrow. Like maybe I can try here also. Let's say hello world. I can say 1, 2, 3, 4. It will still work. So these 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all integers. They will be converted into a string, and then it will be passed on to the method. Okay. If you want to print them, you have to write a for loop, and then you have to print the data. Okay. So 1 second. Maybe what I'll just try to write a simple for loop. You don't need to worry about it right now. So I wanted to show you how it can be done. So int I is equal to 0, I less than or equal or start. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to compile the same program again. See what happened? I have hi, and see I have 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them are getting printed, right? You can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the reason we are using a string, because string can accept any kind of data.
Sure.
For example, maybe what I'm going to do is, let me try something else here. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, I can pass welcome to Java. See what happened? Hi, welcome to Java.
Okay.
It will accept even Boolean numbers also, like 10.50 and 90.08. It will still accept it. And if you want to use any other any characters A, B, C, it will still accept. Okay, but think about this scenario. You're providing string as an input, and if you have an integer, it will immediately fail. Because the expected type is an integer, but you are passing a string. So the reason why we have a string, because string can adapt all kind of data types. That's the point. You remember I told you the first day itself, hello world can be explained 1 or 2 days, because that has a lot of meaningful information in it. Because most of the people doesn't know why. You might have seen a lot of Java programmers, they're all using the public static void main, but nobody is aware of why we are using the string arguments here. Why we are passing string. If you ask 10 people, you can hardly find only 1 or 2 people are actually aware of why they are using string here. Okay,
Sure.
so the fundamental is it has to be very strong. So if you're strong in fundamentals, it's just a piece of cake.
Sure.
Okay, so tomorrow what we're gonna do about is we'll talk about the class. So how to name a class. So we know how to create a class, but do we know the rules, the terms and condition, how to name a class? We don't know, right? So we will talk about the standards tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, and how to create a variables and different data types and the variables and different types of variables, right? We will talk about that in tomorrow's session. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, AJ, what do you want me to do? Like do like do some practice? Like what should I do?
Okay. So I always suggest people you're learning basics from me, right? So what you can do is you can go to any website. You can go to Google and you can say core Java tutorial for beginners. Okay, it will open up any websites. They will have, for example, I can show you here also, not a problem at all. I can do this. Okay, so core Java tutorial. Okay, so now I love Java point anyway. So you can go to this particular website. See, here they have all kind of sections. See, even they have JDK, JRE, Java variables. And now what you can do is, we tried our Java Hello World program,
Yeah.
right? How they do it. Okay, so since you know that the Hello World program, so till this point we discussed. So now what you can do is you can go to Java variable. So because we will talk about that tomorrow, we'll talk about that how to create a variable, what kind of different types of variable. See, what I'm trying to say is you can move forward. Okay, so you can go and you can search the pages and see how they're creating a variables and what is the syntax and try it on your own. And then anyway, I will explain. But since you already tried, even before I explain that to you, you first of all, when you're looking at it for yourself, you know, you can simply copy paste the code, it will work, but you will not have any idea how it is actually working. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically you can come up with your questions. So which will be even more comfortable for you.
Mhm.
Okay. So I want you to overtake me. So if I'm going to cover something tomorrow, you can try to if you have some time, you can spend some time today itself, and you can try to learn it from some internet blogs, and you
Yeah.
can come up with your own questions.
Sure.
Because we hardly covered anything at all till now. We just discussed about
Yeah,
Hello
yeah,
World.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's why I was asking. Like once we get going, like like what do you want me to like? I mean, I'll catch along. Like once we get to that point, I'll ask
Right,
questions.
right.
But yeah,
See, I mean, the way how I need to teach people, right? It's not like I'm teaching you. I have to teach you how to learn. Okay?
yeah,
Because going forward, you should be able to learn it from the internet things. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so if you know the basics and if you know how to search in the internet and how to get things done, because the examples is available all over the internet, but the problem with the people, right? They don't know the core basic knowledge. Okay.
yeah,
Think about this scenario. You can go to you can go to this blog and you will just see the all the subtitles here. So what is that? What is Java? History of Java, features of Java, C++. People will literally skip these points and they'll directly go to Hello Java program and they will skip the program internal, how to set path, JDK, JRE, JVM. Because since these are all the pretty much these are all theoretical stuff. So not
yeah.
human mindset, right? They will simply ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
And once they will see the Hello Java program, then they will jump into the Java variable, Teradata, and other things. So that is the problem. So you have to know the core, the background process, what is happening when you're doing compiling, and how to execute it. I can pretty much tell you something like when lot of people doesn't know that you can pass parameters to a executable class. You remember we tried Java Hello World 10, 20, 30. We tried that, right?
Yeah,
There are a lot of people, they don't even know that. They will just simply Java Hello World and they can see the Hello World program. That's it. Even in this example also, Java Hello program, if you see the program, right? They will simply copy the code and put it in the IDE and they will just run it. And they can see the output as hello world.java. Did they ever here? Did they mention anywhere that you can pass inputs to the method? No, nowhere. It's not mentioned anywhere, right? So most of the people, they don't even have any idea that which means we can pass inputs to the method. You remember like what we tried, right? We
yeah.
tried we tried Java simple.java and Java simple space. You can provide some inputs also here.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
4, or
But
whatever. Yeah,
exactly. But mostly, if you go to the internet sites, most of the sites, no one will tell you that.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So I mean, you just jump ahead and just try whatever you can learn, and you can come up with your question. That's it. That's easy. Okay.
Okay.
So are we good here today? Can you meet tomorrow?
Yep. I'll do.
Okay. Cool. See you tomorrow then.
All right. Thanks, Eddie.
Okay. So
So are you gonna record it or you want me to record it?
I started recording.
Okay.
So we discussed yesterday, like till what is JVM and what is JRE and what is JDK, right? And
Yep.
today we're going to talk about the first program which we written. Okay, it's nothing but our Hello World program. Okay, so now there are some certain rules and conditions. If you take a look at the steps, open a notepad or any text pad and write our Hello World program. Because even here also, I'm not explaining what is public, what is class, what is Hello World, nothing. I'm just simply saying just copy the program and put it in a notepad and save it as a hello world.java. The reason we are storing as hello world.java because the class name is hello world. So the first rule, when you are saving a Java file, you have to save with the class name dot Java. Okay.
Yeah.
And step number 3, compile using JavaC. And we know that what will happen when you compile the program, it will create the class file, or we can tell them as a bytecode.
Yeah.
And last one, run the code using Java execution, Java space, the class name. So this is, we have tried already. So now what we need to do is, we need to talk about the program. Okay, so this is the first time we're going to talk about what actually is the program is all about.
Hey, AJ, can you go back to that slide, number 19?
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to get because I was talking to my cousin yesterday. So I was just explaining him that the JD key, the Java development kit has a JVM in it, and then JVM has a JRE in it. If I'm saying it right.
Now, JVM available inside JRE.
Yeah, so the JVM is available inside JRE, and then the JRE is included in the JDK, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So JDK, it's a whole package.
Yep.
Okay. So we are just taking out only this part out. That is Java runtime environment. Okay. So are you good here?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, let's talk about the program. Okay. So the first step, hello world.java. So why we need to save the program as hello world.java? It can be anything, right? Why should I save as hello world.java?
Because it's a Java file. I mean,
that it's a Java file, but it's fine. But dot extension is fine. Dot Java file is fine. Why should I use hello world? Because the first thumb rule, when you're trying to save a Java file, it has to be saved with the class name.
Okay.
Okay. And a second important thing, why public static void main? Okay. So first of all, before I proceed step 2, let me explain what exactly these things. Okay. So this is just a class and it contains, let me remove this. Okay. So this is a class. First of all, we need to try to understand what is the curly braces and all. Okay. So class, which is nothing but it's a keyword. Okay. So that is
it's a what?
It's a keyword.
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 A keyword. Okay.
It's a keyword. Like
okay.
It's a keyword. Okay. And one thing we need to be make sure the keywords cannot be modified.
Okay.
Okay. But can you change the hello world to something else?
Yeah, we can, I think.
Of course, that is possible. The reason behind it, it's a user-defined one. Name always user-defined.
Yeah.
Okay. And class is a keyword because this is the one which indicates hello world. It's a class. For example, let me do this. Hello world. And I have something like hello world. And I have something like hello world. So how do you know which one is class? Because all of them are hello world. The way we can identify which one is a class, if it is a class, it started with a class and the hello world. So now you can identify hello world is a class name. But what is these two? It can be a variable, right? I can name in hello world 0. So here it's a variable name, and here it's a class name. And here when you provide the open and close bracket, it becomes the method. Okay, so now that is the most important thing we need to know about the keywords, because keywords will tell you what exactly the user defined things. Here hello world is a user defined name which belongs to a class. Here hello world, still it's a user defined, but it is not a class. And do you know why it is not a class?
Because it's an integer.
Exactly, integer, it's a data type. It's not actually a class. So now you can identify hello world is a data type, or you can simply say it's a variable. The way how you can identify, because it contains some data type. And again, I have one more hello world, which contained some open and close brackets. So in Java, only methods contains open and close brackets. Okay, so we will talk about that in detail anyway. But first, let's talk about the brackets. So I have a class hello world, but why we are trying to open and close parentheses? The reason, this is the body of this class. Okay, and then I'm trying to add the same method here. And here also I'm using an open and close parenthesis. This is also body of the method. Okay, so ultimately whatever is inside this particular block, there belongs to a method.
Power off.
And whatever belongs to this particular curly braces, all of them belongs to this particular class. Let's say I'm adding one more method here, void add. And now you tell me how many methods are available in the class file.
2.
There are 2 methods. So all these 2 methods are available inside this open and close parenthesis, right? Which means these 2 methods are belongs to a hello world class. Okay, but if you take a look at this main method and the add method, these are all individual methods. So only this block belongs to main method, only this block belongs to add method. Okay, so this body cannot communicate with the other method's body because they are private areas.
Okay.
Okay.
So what actually is a class? Like, what does a class mean? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm just
no, it does make sense. Okay, so class is a kind of a template where we will define what I'm gonna develop right now.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a kind of a container. If you want to put some things into some proper place, you have to put it in a container. If you keep it open, that will not be contained. You won't be able to do anything with that. Okay, it's a structured programming language. So everything follow the programming structure. So everything has to be written inside a class. Okay, which indicates that the class is you can simply say as a template. Okay, and whatever is inside, these are properties. Let me give you another example. Some real world example. Okay, do you think human is a class?
I think human body is a class.
No, human, the word, is it a class or is something else?
Human, I think human, you can call it a class, I think.
Okay, a person, is it a class?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know the context.
It is it's just a generic term. It's not about anything technical. See, you can call anybody as a human being.
Yeah.
Okay, whether it is a male or it a female or it's something else, it doesn't matter. They're all human beings.
Yeah.
Okay, so which means that is a template, because under the human template, we are all different categories.
Yeah, makes sense now.
Okay, but men and women, they're not the classes. They are just different properties under the human beings.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the exact difference between the class and the properties. We'll talk about that in detail when we talk about OOPS concept, because in the OOPS concept, we'll talk about what exactly class and what exactly is an object. Now, whatever I explained, it is just a generic term, just to make you feel comfortable what exactly the class means.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. So the next thing, you need to understand what class contain, right? So far, whatever we learned, we know that inside a class, we can have a methods, right? We have a main method. And we have one more method called void add. Similarly, inside the class, we can have methods and we can have variables. So do you think is there anything else which we need to provide in there?
Mm,
To your knowledge, no, I don't know.
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if somebody is asking you what a class contains, it is just simple things, methods and variables. You can call them as class methods. And the variables, you can call them as a class methods. Okay, so if somebody is asking what is a class? Class is a combination of the class methods and the class members. Members is nothing but the different kind of variables.
Okay.
Okay, still we are just simply talking about what is a class and what it can contain.
Mhm.
Okay, still we haven't talked about how to create a method. Okay, so now let's talk about how to create. Okay. I think I should put it in somewhere. So it will be easy for you to show. Okay, so how to create a class. The first rule, class and the class name. Okay, and still you might be asking why the class name is started with a capital letter and why the name is started also with a capital letter. These are all some terms. We can call them as standards. Let's not worry about right now. For now, I'll just tell you how to create a class. So it's a simple. The way to create a class, it's just a keyword and the class name. So are we clear?
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes you might see like public in front of it. So which is nothing but the class is public, which means it can be accessible by anybody. Normally, we will not provide any public here. And the reason behind it, by default, is public. Okay. You understood why we have to
Yeah.
provide a public and why we should not?
Yeah. In case we want everybody to like have access to the code, then we can do the public. Or if not, if it's private, then we don't need to have public. If that makes
No,
sense.
first of all, by default, all the classes are public. They are
public, okay.
packaged privates. So when it is something is known for everybody, we don't have to specify it. I know it's a public.
Mhm.
Okay, there is a toilet in the public. Okay, you don't have to mention like public toilet. You don't need to do that because it's there in the public. All you
Yeah.
can do is it's just a toilet. That's it. You don't have to mention it's a public toilet. But when the same toilet is available in your home, you're not supposed to put public toilet because it's a private space.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is the reason we are not providing any keywords before the class file. But there are certain scenarios we will provide some keywords before the class. We'll talk about that in upcoming the topics.
Okay.
Okay. So the next thing, now you know how to create a class. Next thing you need to understand how to create a method. A method. First of all, before we need to understand how to create a method, can you tell me? Whenever I ask some question, I'll never ask any technical terms. I'll just ask in a simple generic term. So
Yeah,
why
yeah.
do you think we need to create a method?
We need to create a method in order to put something into the body of the class. So,
Or maybe I can simply ask you, you have seen the calculator, right?
yeah.
So, and we have a numbers in it.
Yep.
And why do we have the plus, minus, and multiply? And there are different kind of operators in there.
So we can have the numbers interact with each other.
Exactly. For example, when you provide 10 plus or when you provide the input as 10, comma 20, and the operator which you are choosing is a plus symbol. Okay, so actually what will happen when you're doing this, it will call a method which will perform add and which will take two inputs, which is like 10, comma 20, and the outcome is going to be 30. Okay?
Yeah.
So when it will happen? Only when you press the plus button, because when you press the plus button, it will call the add method. So when you press the minus button, the same thing happen in the other way around, but it's still the same numbers. It's the same calculator. All you're trying different is you're just trying to use a different operator altogether. 4. So when you use minus, what will happen? Obviously, it's going to call the another function or another method, which will take these two inputs and it will subtract the difference.
Yeah.
So now you know the point why we need to have the methods, because methods is nothing but they have certain properties.
Sure.
Okay. Or you can simply say when you're running a college, okay, and you have a different kind of things you need to do. For example, when the new students comes in, you have a website, right? So registering form, register student. Okay, so when somebody wants to register, it has to open a specific UI which contains the username and the first name, last name, Gmail ID, for mobile number and other information. Okay, so what happens when you click submit? It will call a separate function which will take all those inputs and it will create a student or it will register a student. Okay, sure. But next time when you try to delete some students, you'll do the other way around. All you need is you just need the student ID, feed the student ID and click the delete button. It will remove from the database. So each and every operation holds a separate functionality. Okay, so if anybody asks you what exactly a method contains, a method contains a functionality, or in a technical term, you can simply say it contains the business logic.
Okay.
Okay. So that is how that is the purpose of method in the first place. Now let's see how we can create a method. So whenever you create a method, the first thing is you need to use the return type. I'll explain what is return type, and then the method name, and then you need to use the close and open brackets, and then you need to open the curly braces. And now you tell me why we need to use the curly braces. Hello? Are you there?
Oh, sorry, I went on mute. I was speaking. Yeah, so everything that's in the curly braces would be executed, like in the return type, I think.
So when you call this method, only this block will be executed.
Block will be, yep.
Okay. So now we need to understand what the heck is the return type. Okay. I'm asking, hey, what is your name?
I don't know.
Yes, right. So you responded back to me something. Okay. You go stand against the wall and ask it, what is your name? What are you going to get?
Nothing.
Nothing. So nothing also is a return type. Okay. So every method must have a return type. Okay. So let's take this example. Okay. When you press the plus button, let's say it's calling an add method. Okay. And more importantly, and this is a method name. Okay. So I can simply make it as a method name here. So whenever somebody calls this method, this block will be executed. But why do you think the brackets is for?
I don't know. You just said that they need to be there.
Yes, they need to be there. Okay. Let's say you're sitting inside a class. Okay. So can I call as a hey or a student? So what will happen when I call it? Literally everyone will turn and will see.
Yeah.
Because all of us are students. So when you call when you call the entire class as a hey or a student, everybody will turn up. but you want to call a specific person, what do you need to do?
Ask them by their name.
Exactly. So when you're calling this method, so you might want to call a specific person or specific functionality. So you need to tell them, okay, I'm trying to call this particular person. So the parameter matters. Parameters, or you can call them as inputs. Okay.
Okay.
So you can call them as the inputs here. So let me put it in a real world example so it will be easy to understand. Let's say I want to add 10 and 20. So how I can do that? First thing, I need to write a method called as add, right? So first thing, so before we need to write a method, the first important signature is you need to mention the return type, right? Because when you add 10 plus 20, it has to return a 30.
Yeah.
Or else it doesn't make any sense at all. So here I'll explain the data type later, but for now I'm just giving an integer. So my return type is going to be int here, and my method name is add, and I'll open the brackets. But here I need to provide the inputs: int x, int y. So what I'm going to do is here, this is the implementation part, right? So when you have a method which is returning something, in the implementation, you have to perform some calculation or you have to perform something, and then you have to make sure you're returning it properly, right or wrong.
Right.
Okay, for example, I'm going to create a variable here, int is equal x plus y. So are we done here? Actually, we completed the implementation, but I did not get the 30 because I need to return back. So what I need to do is I need to return the total. So now what happened? A method which contains a return type, and it has a method name, and it has a inputs. So it doesn't mean all the methods must have a parameter. It's not like that. There are methods without any parameter also. Okay, you can do that. So now here, so here is a signature, return type and the method name. So if your method wants to return something, you have to return it back. So the return keyword. Because it is expecting some return type and we're returning something, right? Since it is expecting an integer from this method. So what are we, total is an integer or something else?
It should be integer.
It is an integer. So when you return it, it will happily accept it. Okay. Or now we have another kind of situation. Hey, I will give you two inputs. You just perform something and I don't want you to return anything. So how are you going to perform the same operation? So we need to know what will happen if I don't want to return anything. So what do you mean by not returning anything? Any ideas?
Not implementing it.
I will implement something, but I don't need to return.
We don't need the total, or we don't need to add them. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right, that is right. So what I can do, they can simply say, get those two inputs and add those numbers and just print it. You don't need to return back to me what is the result at all. Okay, so which means every method must have a return type. It may return something, sometimes it may not return something. Okay, so the return type will be always expected, but the return value must be anything. So here, let me provide the same thing here. So here I'm going to copy the same method here. And since in this implementation, I don't want to return anything, you can simply print total. That's all I need. I don't want to return anything. But here, do we have a integer return type? So if you compile this program, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think it will get compiled?
I think yes.
Now, think about this scenario. Check the signature syntax and then compare it here. And then tell me, okay, let me put it here so we can easily compare. Okay, compare these two. Are they matching? This is the syntax, and I just implemented the same here. So when you compile it, do you think it will compiled successfully? Don't you think something is missing?
The return type?
Exactly. So this method is returning integer type, but are we returning anything here?
No.
No. So it will get failed in the compilation itself because the method is expecting something, but you're not returning anything, which means it's failed in the compilation. But my expectation is I don't want to return anything.
Okay.
Why should I return? I don't want to return anything. So in those kind of scenarios, you can provide void. You might have known what is a void.
Yeah, it's just to cancel it.
It is just empty, nothing.
Empty.
Or you can say anything. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are only two types, void and non-void. So void means the method will not return anything. Void. Non-void. Okay. So now let me change the code a little bit and see whether you are able to understand it now. So now I just did something. Now tell me this piece of code will get compiled or not.
Yes.
Are you sure it will get compiled? Can you follow the syntax once?
I think I mean, the only thing that I can see is the total needs to be TOTL. I mean, other than that, with the syntax, I think it.
Okay, just read this out. Can you check this? What is that?
Void will not return anything.
But do you see something called return here?
Yeah.
So that is wrong, right? I'm not even asking anything.
Oh, yeah.
Think about this scenario. I'm not even asking anything. You started giving everything to me. Hey man, I did not ask you anything.
So it won't get compiled.
Okay, it will not get compiled again. See, it will happen in the both ways. Your method must be expecting something and you are not returning something. That is also an error. I'm asking you something. You need to respond back to me. Or else it's a compilation issue.
Sure.
And you're telling something and it doesn't need to be responded back because asking is different and telling is different. Understand? Okay.
Yeah.
So here it's a void. And since I use return key over here, it will eventually fail because void method cannot be return anything from it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now now we haven't talked about what we are supposed to do. We are able to talk about the first hello world program.
Does this still need to be printed or could that just be compiled just with the void and then telling it to add it?
It will get compiled. See, I have an int total here. You can do whatever you want with it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You can print it or you can pass this data to some other methods also. Okay, that's up to you. But ultimately, one thing you have to be very sure, this method at the end, this method will not return anything because it has a void in it.
Yep.
Okay. And one more important thing, the return keyword must be the last line. Okay. So running out of time, this meeting will end in 10 minutes. Upgrade now to remove it. Okay, fine. So now what will happen is, I was able to say something after seeing the notification. I forgot. Okay. So the return where it has to be placed. It has to be placed in the last line. In last line of the block.
Okay.
You know what is a block, right? The things which is between this particular thing, it is called as a block.
Yeah.
It can be a class block or it can be a method block.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a very basics about before we need to stepping into the programming. These are the things we need to know. So what exactly a class? I mean, what is a class? We're not talking about that. How to create a class and what it contains and how to create them. So first thing, do we know how to create a class?
Yeah. We're gonna type in class and the
That's
class
right.
name. Yeah.
And we know what a class contains. A class contains a method and the members.
Yep.
And we do know how to create a method as well. Okay, so now all we need to do is let's go back to our hello world program, then we'll explore it. Okay. So step 1, we already discussed. And the step 2, why public static void main. Okay, so we need to understand that why we have a public static. Let's go back to our hello world program and let me remove this. So why can't I have void add here? So when I'm executing the hello world program, did I say is any place execute the main method? Did I say any? Okay, let me show you that again. Let me go to the command prompt, terminal. Okay, so here we compiled our program, right? That is why we can see the hello world. Now I'm executing Java space hello world. When I'm doing that, why the hi is getting printed? Have you think about that? How come it is getting called? Okay, I might have something like this also. Go back and compile it again. Okay, now take a look at the program. I have two methods, right? Public static void main and void add. And don't worry about the public static and all. I will explain that later. You know the purpose of public static, I'll explain in a while. So here we have two methods. The first method is main method and the second method is add. But when I'm executing it, why the hi is getting printed? Why not the other thing is not getting printed? Like a hi from add method. Did you think about that? Why it is happening?
Because the add method is being avoided.
It's not like avoided. Think about this scenario. I compiled the class and I even executed it. So when I'm running it, why it is executing the statements available inside the main method and not the add method?
Oh, because I don't know if I'm right, but because the hi is the public method and then the add method it's not public. If that makes
okay,
sense.
So just for you, I'm gonna make it even easier. I'm making the. Okay, so now I'm going back and I'm gonna do that again. What's happening now?
Just hi, same.
Okay, so it is curious, right? I have two methods. I did not tell the program to call the main, execute whatever available in the main method, and I'm not telling it to execute something, whatever is available in the add. Right? But you might be wondering how the main method is getting called in the first place. Okay, there are two methods. So someone is calling the main method. Who is that? Okay, so that is where we need to discuss even more further what is the purpose of main method. Okay, can you tell me, you might be wondering, I have two methods, why the hell this method is getting called, but I'm not even calling the method? Because you're executing Java at hello world. Are you executing main method anywhere?
Are we executing? Yeah, so we are executing the main method in the second line.
No. We are executing the hello world class, not any specific method.
Yeah, true.
See, we could have been happy if it's executing both the methods, right? Because the methods are available, so it's getting executed. But why only one method is getting executed, another one is not getting executed?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so that is where a lot of people get confused. Okay, so when it comes to a class, there are two things: executable class and non-executable class. So, and the reason why the main method is getting called because it is a default method for the Java. Okay, so we all know that we can modify the method names. But especially this method cannot be modified because this is the, I can say that this is the entry point. Okay. This is the entry point. So when you're executing the hello world, it by default calling the main method. So the reason how it's going to get called, the method is static. So now the next question, why static? Because a class can access static methods and the members without an object. So normally in Java, if you want to call a method, you need an object. Okay. But the main method, I did not create any object. The main method it still get called. The reason by Java, this is the entry point method. That is the reason we are calling that as a main method. You might be thinking, so what will happen if I modify the main method into AJ? Do you think this class will get executed?
No.
Okay, so now I'm going back to the terminal and I'm gonna perform the same thing. Hello world, and I'm performing Java hello world. What happened?
Sure.
So you're trying to execute a hello world class. You're trying to execute. So the term is very much important. What I'm trying to say is, I am trying to execute a class file, right or wrong?
Yeah.
So in order to execute a class file, it must be executable class.
True.
Correct? So how do you identify a class is an executable class?
That I don't know.
Yes, that is where the main method comes into the picture. So when you have this method in your class, then only this class becomes a executable class.
Okay.
Okay, so that is what this first one. If it is an executable class, it must have the main method. If the main method is not available, you cannot execute the class at all. Okay, so now I'm going back and I'm going to recompile it again and we'll see what happened now. See, now I'm able to execute it.
Yeah.
Because we have a main method here. Okay, so the way the main method, how it will get executed, when you provide Java space hello world, this is what you provide in the command prompt, right? But in the background, the way how it will get called, hello world dot main method. This is how it's getting called internally. We don't have to specify that. When you execute it, it automatically adds the main method into your class and it is trying to execute the main method. So if the method is available, it will be executed successfully, right? Hello world.main. If the main method is available in the hello world, this will be executed without any issues, right?
Okay.
Okay. But when I'm trying to execute the hello world and I don't have the main method here, I have something called AJ. So when you're trying to execute it, the program will identify you're trying to execute a hello world, but it doesn't have a main method. If it doesn't have a main method, it is not an executable class. So I will not be able to execute the class at all. That was the error message we got it earlier.